DevelopSec, developing security awareness with James Jardine, brought to you by Jardine Software. Hi, and welcome to episode 16 of the DevelopSec podcast. I am your host, James Jardine, and today it's going to be all about the cloud, that wonderful thing that's out there that is so mysterious. We don't really understand what it is. Doesn't matter who you talk to, you get a different story. It is that cloud. If you've seen that movie Sex Tape, that new movie that's out, where they make a video of themselves and it gets synced up to the cloud, and then gets synced across to other places, right? And hey, we deleted off one machine, but oh no, it's still in the cloud. I don't understand this mysterious cloud. How do you get it out of the cloud? The cloud is kind of a niche thing these days. We hear about it all the time. Lots of people don't really understand what it is, how it works, if they're even connected to it. Yet most people probably have some tie into this cloud that we talk about. And really, when we talk about the cloud, for our purposes, what we're talking about is servers that are hosted by service providers, companies. Think Dropbox, Sync, Box, Azure, right? All these different services out there. These companies have data centers where they're hosting servers that store data, right? It's off-site storage, basically, is what we're talking about here. And the idea is that we're going to take data from our local devices, whether it's our computer, our iPad, our iPhone, our Galaxy Note, whatever tablet, mobile device, computer you have, we can take our data and save it out to the cloud. You see services like Carbonite that allow you to back up your system in the event that your system crashes, gets stolen, something happens to it. You can then recover that data. For example, maybe you're unfortunate, your house catches on fire, you lose everything in the house. But a service like that, hey, we've got everything stored externally in the cloud. Now you can come get your data and you haven't lost anything, right? You were backing up to a local drive because at least you were doing backing up, but unfortunately it was still on site. Something happens, somebody breaks into your house, steals all your stuff, it's all gone, right? We have this ability to back up data, come and get it later. Now we're good to go. Another popular use you see, especially with Dropbox, and Box and Sync, right, is this ability to have the same file propagate itself across multiple devices. Hey, I'm working on this file on my desktop. Okay, I'm all done. I'm going to go someplace else. Oh, I have my phone with me. Let me fire up my phone. I can edit the document. It's right there. Oh, I got my tablet. Edit the document right there. Now I'm back at my computer. Everything syncs across all these devices. It's always up to date. And I don't have to constantly have a thumb drive or email myself the document back and forth to work on it. So another good reason why we use these services that we have. Things like iCloud for the iOS devices, right? I take photos on my phone. It automatically syncs it up to my photo stream and then syncs it down. So my computer has it, my iPad has it. All my devices have those photos. So it works as a backup, sort of, right? A pseudo backup, because it is pushing everything to multiple devices. But at the same time, it stores that data up there as well. And some systems store it longer than others. All systems store their data differently. Some boast security as a major feature. Now, don't be fooled by the our security equals we use SSL 2.0. Okay, yeah, they encrypted data in transit, but what are they doing with the data that they're actually storing on their servers? Is it encrypted before you send it? Is it encrypted after you send it? Do they have the ability to decrypt the data that's being sent? These are things we want to think about as we start using these services. Now, recently in the news, right, there's all kinds of hoopla about the idea that a whole bunch of celebrities had their accounts hacked. They lost nude photos. But honestly, the nude photos piece, that's a headline grabber. That's a hype mobile. It really doesn't have anything to do with whether systems are secure or anything like that. They went after a certain type of data, just happened to be something that, really causes a stir, but really is less of a concern around the problem, right? Our problem isn't should you be taking nude photos of yourself and storing them up in the cloud. That's not the issue at hand. What we need to think about is we use these services. Whether we know it or not, we should know it. Ignorance is no excuse. If you're using something like an iPhone and you're syncing to PhotoStream, you should understand your device well enough to know that it's doing that. But we should have the right to do that, right? I mean, but there's nothing wrong with me syncing something to my cloud account. But we have to understand that no matter what we do on the internet, there is some form of risk. If you're storing it electronically, there's a chance that it's going to get stolen. Whether that's on your local machine, right? You click a link, give somebody access to your machine, they steal all your data. That's a problem. Whether that's in the cloud, somebody figures out a way to get access to your account in the cloud, whether it's brute forcing your password or guessing your password, or you reused your password from another site. Maybe they social engineered the password reset form and were able to reset your password. It doesn't matter what it is, right? There's ways that data could be breached, even if it's stored out there. Now, it is an interesting question. Which do you think is more secure overall? Do you think your cloud accounts are more secure? Or your accounts like sitting on your device or sitting on your local machine? There's lots of examples out there of people just clicking a link and all of a sudden attackers having control of their machine. This type of thing, happens all the time. So you have to ask yourself, what is the risk versus the reward? What's the reward of me storing data up in the cloud? And what's that risk? What are the chances that my account's going to be hacked? Maybe they're good, maybe they're not. Again, it depends on the service that you're using. It depends on the security they're implementing. It depends on your own ability to create strong passwords. We're not talking about using password 1. We're not talking about password 123. Simple passwords like that, because they're short, it's not as difficult for attackers to break those. We want to have something long. Now, recently I saw somebody recommend using like your favorite quote from a movie. To me, I tend to not recommend that, but that's just because how many favorite quotes are there in movies? Like, there's quotes people quote all the time from movies. It's not going to take long to put together that small list. It should be relatively small. Put together a list of that to make it fairly simple to crack. Whereas if you're just taking random passphrases that you're creating, there's no real easy way to create that list of all possibilities. But quotes from movies or quotes from TV shows, those are somewhat of a limited item. So we have to be a little bit cautious there, but we want to make sure that we're doing things like selecting strong passwords, doing things like enabling two-factor authentication if that's an option. iCloud has two-factor authentication you can enable. Other applications, I believe Dropbox has it. It just depends on how it's set up. But if you have the option for two-factor authentication, use it. Think about the items that you're storing in these cloud systems, right? Am I going to throw stuff in Dropbox? If I'm going to throw stuff in Sync or Box, is it something that I find super sensitive? Should I put it up there? If I'm going to put it up there, should I encrypt it myself first? There are tools that you can download for any operating system where you have the ability to take a file and actually encrypt it on your local hard drive and then sync that up. And then now nobody can read that file, right? Because it's encrypted. The only downside is now whatever device you want to read it on, you have to have the ability to decrypt it. And depending on how you encrypted it, that may be a little bit more difficult. If you're just going computer to computer and you're leaving out the idea of mobile devices, you probably have a better chance of not running into issues with that. As soon as you start getting into mobile devices, trying to view those files, it gets a little bit more tricky, a little bit more difficult to handle, but it's still an option. Obviously the best option is don't store sensitive information. Don't store your file with credit card numbers up there. Don't store your health information up there. But we can store stuff up there. I store all kinds of stuff in my Dropbox. Nothing that I would consider of sensitive nature. I don't even use Dropbox for photos. I don't take indecent photos. So that type of stuff is not up there. I don't store sensitive information. It's things like resume or simple documents that I'm working on that I want to have access to pretty much at any given time. iCloud, right? I sync my photos so it goes to all my devices because that's kind of a cool feature of what it is. But I understand the risk. I understand the reward. And for me, the type of data that I'm storing, right? The reward is worth the risk of using these services. Because again, depending on the service you're using, there may be or may not be good security. And unfortunately, we all can't just go out and test the security of every site we want to use to say, oh, does this meet my standards or not? Unfortunately, we're kind of at the mercy of these developers to determine if they have done a good job creating a secure environment for your data. We see a lot of blame go around, right? Oh, it's the celebrity's fault and this most recent incident for taking those type of photos and syncing it to the cloud. They shouldn't do that. There's really no rules set out there as far as what we can send to the cloud, what we can't send to the cloud, right? And if you're a cloud provider, you're providing these services, understand that people are sending all kinds of data up here. They're not really thinking about it. A lot of them don't realize that, hey, it's synced, right? Because it's all behind the scenes in most cases. So, don't even think about it. So we have to be aware that people are storing stuff up here. We need to take responsibility. We need to ensure that our systems are being secure and that we're taking care of business on our end, the provider end, to help better protect our customers. Now, to me, ultimately, the blame goes on anybody that actually performs the attack. Whether you had a vulnerability in your system or not, it's somebody actually exploiting that vulnerability. They're the ultimate blame there for actually exploiting that and going forward with it. But keep in mind that as a provider, if you can't show that you did your due diligence of trying to secure your applications, well, maybe some of that blame can be led over to you as well. Unfortunately, there is no secure applications. Doesn't matter what you do, right? Every application is breachable in some way. Somebody will find a way to get in given enough time. So we understand that we have a possibility of getting breached. The question is, are we doing enough as far as the industry standards to try to protect our customers? Because unfortunately, what we see in a lot of these sites, right, us as the customer, we start complaining that, oh, they're not doing security and they're not protecting us and they're not doing this and they're not doing that. But we have to remember who the customer is when we really start looking at some of these services. How many of those services do you pay for? Right? You can get free accounts on most of them. Dropbox, you can get a free account with quite a bit of data, right? Even not even going in a storage thing, but email accounts, right? You get all this stuff for free. So keep in mind that the ultimate end user for, or the ultimate end customer for a lot of these services are advertisement agencies, right? They're where they're getting their money. Us, the user, not necessarily, unless we're paying for the premium packages, or, we've upgraded, so we're getting more storage. But, most of the users out there that are just default users, they stay into the 2 gig limit or whatever limit may exist. I mean, that's a free service. How can we complain about how much we get for free? I mean, obviously we can, but that's something we also have to consider, right? Is it something you're paying for? Is it something that's free? How are they, using you as a customer versus, how are they making their money? And these are things that as users we have to take into account and think about. Do we need to stop using the cloud services that exist? Are you going to stop using iCloud because celebrity photos got stolen? Probably not. I know it's not going to affect me. I'll continue using cloud services, just like I continue to use my credit card in restaurants. I continue to use my credit card online. Right? There's a risk to what we're doing. We need to monitor what we're doing. We need to understand that risk. With credit cards, right, we monitor our statements. That's what we do. We monitor our statements. That's the responsibility of a credit card holder, is that you monitor your statements. There's zero liability for credit card fraud, right? Hey, I call up the credit card holder. Hey, that transaction is fraudulent. They do a little research. Okay, biggity bang. It's done, right? They take it off your account. No harm, no foul. You don't pay it. You're fine, right? But you have to monitor your transactions to make sure you're catching whether there's fraudulent charges on your system. They're not going to catch every one. We, as a card holder, should be doing that. Same thing with when we're talking about using these different services, right? Think about what you're setting up there. Watch and look. Some of these services have the ability to show you what computers have connected to them, when the last time another computer logged in to that service. If those things are available, we want to use those. Look at those. See when somebody else logged in. See if a different machine than one you normally use logged in and you didn't do it, right? These are all things that we can do to help try to detect and then recover from these incidents that we see happening. We don't have to follow all the hype of let's shut everything down, let's not use cloud services anymore, blah, 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 right? We can use them. We just have to be cautious, right? We have to understand what we're doing. For the providers out there, we have to start thinking more about and doing a better job of implementing security in our systems. I see a lot of job advertisements for a lot of these places looking for application security people, security architects, and it's good that we're seeing people start doing this, right? But again, we run into there's a shortage of cybersecurity professionals. We've got a lot of cybersecurity professionals. The problem is we don't use them efficiently, right? Let's take their knowledge, let's have them direct and lead other people like QA groups into setting up programs so QA is doing better security testing within the company to help protect our apps, to work in with the developers and show them how we can secure our code and be part of the design process and developing these security controls, that we can use these resources that we already have working every day building our stuff to extend them a little bit, to be those extra hands that security doesn't have right now, to make it better. So start working with your team. Start getting everybody together. We need to keep moving forward and start getting better at security. We're seeing some sites get better at it, but still a lot that are not. We need to keep moving forward with it. So don't fret. Cloud services are there. Weigh the risks versus the rewards. Think about what you're putting in them. And other than that, just be diligent about everything, right? Look at what you're doing, monitor your transactions, and if you notice something funny going on, report it to whatever service provider it is, and go from there. So small little rant there on the cloud, since that seems to be the hot topic, and everybody seems to focus solely on the fact that there's indecent photos that are out there, but that's really nothing but hype. It's really an idea of, hey, we've got services out here, we just need to use them properly. So that's it. We'll talk to you next time. You have been listening to the DevelopSec podcast with James Jardine. Follow us on Twitter at DevelopSec and visit our website at www.developsec.com for more episodes and information.